Okay, I'm going to admit everybody now.
Okay.
All right. Okay. Good morning, Christina.
Hi, everyone. How are you? Thank you so much for joining our conversation today. We have retailers, media partners, and industry partners alike on this conversation. And I know many of you we're all so busy. And so it really feels so special that everyone's taken the time to be able to join us in this conversation today. As partners of us, I think you know Maggie Sottero Design stands for love and love for all. And we strive each and every day in everything that we do to really be leading from our hearts. We strive to make all brides' dreams a reality, no matter what their skin colors, their body size, etc. And we proudly partner with a diverse group of bridal boutiques from around the world. Now, last year, we started this webinar series, Diversity in Bridal. And with Black History Month, this was an important time and opportunity to really be able to deepen the conversation and bring awareness and celebrate our Black community and create more love within the industry. Now, the words of Dr. Martin Luther King Jr. were so powerful and moving when they were first spoken. But they hold so much power for us today as we continue to lead and be the change agents in our community and our industry and what we all need today. So with the support and the perspective of this esteemed panel that we're about to hear from, we have Stacey Hughes, who's the Director of Customer Success Programs with Maggie Sottero Designs. We have Meredith from World Bride Magazine and the co-chair of the Multicultural Committee from the Bridal Council. We also have Mirna, who is also from the Knot and who's the co-chair of the Multicultural Committee for the Bridal Council as well. And we have our gorgeous, beautiful brand ambassador, Lyris Cross, who is an activist in herself, and we are so excited to have this panel together. So with this panel, we want to dive deeper into the context of Dr. King's famous words, his vision, and discuss how we can apply this and empower our Black community, both partner and bride alike. Now, I think we know that this conversation will be raw, it will be emotional, and some people will say, frankly, it's risky. So this is our opportunity together to practice love today and hold space for each other and embrace the vulnerability that will lead to growth. Now, this is going to be a rich conversation, as we said, an emotional conversation. So please, if you have any comments, if you have any questions, please put them in chat and I will help to moderate and integrate that into the conversation where appropriate. So again, thank you for joining Maggie Sottero Designs today and our panel for taking their time and their level of expertise to be able to join us and deepen this conversation around the words and the beautiful power that Dr. King provided for us then and now. Stacey, over to you.
Thank you so much, Christina, and thank you to our amazing panelists for joining us today. I'm first going to introduce Meredith Leon-McCormack. Meredith, you have been so inspirational when it comes to your interest in the other America, that the messages of empowerment that come from Dr. King's speeches. And I will say from our first panel conversation where we discussed diversity in bridal and what we can do in the industry to really ensure that we are offering an experience that celebrates love for everyone. We have seen so many amazing things come from our retailer partners. So I want to take a moment and celebrate the accomplishments of so many of the Maggie Sottero retailers who've really taken this opportunity to embrace growth and diversity and love for all. especially the fabulous team at I Do Bridal that has really done so much, developing a book club even to really make sure that they're exploring these topics. I also want to celebrate the amazing things that we have seen over at our fabulous retailer in Denver, the Bridal Collection. Both of these shops have taken this opportunity to look within and really ensure that their business is representing their values. And Meredith, this is a message that is so near and dear to your heart. When you think about what the racial justice movement is about, to you, it's all about lifting up those around us. So would you tell us a little bit about what inspires you?
Well, first, I want to say thank you for having me, and I want to thank Lyris for reintroducing us and connecting us. And her movement, like Dr. King's speeches, is come in stages. Dr. King first preached about love because he wanted Black people to be seen. Then there's the second stage, which was the other America, because we do recognize, or we have to recognize, that there is two America, one that prospers for one group while excluding another. So for me, racial justice can't come if I can't make a living, if I can't sustain myself, if I can't live where I choose, if I can't own a business, if I'm not even being seen. Lyris is crossing that line. She took the risk, like you and I discussed, opening her mouth. She had the courage, the audacity to open her mouth and say, hey, this foundation doesn't work for me. They don't know how to do my hair, which led to what? An opportunity for them to either correct it or dismiss her. But she could have lost her contracts behind all of that. But her being seen now opened the door for them to hire who? A Black hairstylist, groomer, to address her needs. So once we're seen, how do we gain equity? And the only way I know to gain equity is the ability to get a job, provide for my family, to be, for that to be impactful to my community. Because we know, and we talked about that just for us in our private conversations, both Stacy and Christina, that your bridal company, your family-owned bridal company, has opened doors for so many people to become entrepreneurs, to own a bridal salon, to showcase, for models, for everything else. So equality isn't about just one. All right, now I see you. No longer can you make the comment, oh, I don't see color anymore. Okay, now I do see you. You are Black. But now I want to employ you. I want to work with you. I want to invest in you. And that's why I decided that it's better for me. I can't do the fight alone. And I think that's why Lyris and I have such a strong tie together, because she's not comfortable being the only Black girl in the room. So she brings in other Black people, other people of color, of excellence, so that we are seen for what we weren't ever seen before. So for me, that's what equality is. That's why the other speeches, the continuation speech that Dr. King spoke of, resonates with me, because once I can do that, then I can develop and grow and become all that I am.
Well, and I will say you have done such beautiful inspirational work with World Bride magazine, really celebrating multicultural standards of beauty. And that phrase that you said about, I don't see color. No, it is, I see beyond color. I can recognize the color of your skin just as you can recognize the color of my skin. But that doesn't color my ability to celebrate your accomplishments, to see your contributions. And then also, if I see that you are a person of immense talent and you're not given the opportunity to express those talents, if you're not given the opportunity to flourish and thrive and grow and celebrate your love stories, if I'm given a platform where I can give you that opportunity to share your voice, that is my position of privilege to be able to do that, so that we can work together to ensure that all of these gorgeous voices are going to be heard. And I've just really loved the work that you do as an editorial director at World Bride magazine. So thank you so much for taking some time away from your busy day to join us today.
And I'm honored. I'm honored to share the stage with powerful women. of all races if people don't notice.
We really do have women who are joining us today from all over the world who've taken time out of their busy days. I know that Fridays in a bridal shop are just absolutely a very difficult time to get away and spend an hour with us today. So not only will we have this for those of you who've joined us live, we will also share this out to any of our retail partners who weren't able to join us live so that they can listen to this and listen to the words that you had to share with us today. So speaking of powerful, impressive women who have so much to share with us, Myrna Durrami, who is joining us today, I will say we had the privilege of participating on a bridal panel earlier in the year that was really talking about the ways the bridal industry has responded to what you called the awakening of 2020. And our awakening of 2020 certainly started with the movement of this summer, but then we've shifted also into reflecting on the awakening of 2019, when so many women stepped forward and said, time is up, and spoke for themselves and said, we will not tolerate mistreatment. And now as we moved forward into 2020 and into 2021, we see the resonance of the message Meredith is talking about when it comes to that economic disadvantage. So there's so much in today's conversation that isn't simply about race or simply about Black people. It's about justice. It's about liberty. It's about the way we respect and honor each other. And you put together a gorgeous post earlier in this month that just gave me the inspiration for what I thought we could really contribute to that conversation. And so we're going to talk today about that post that you had pushed out, but tell us a little bit about what was behind your thought process when you put together your beautiful message about the works of Dr. King.
So the premise of my post was literally, it's a synonymous theme that I feel like I've been feeling since last year, and the awakening, as we call it. And it was the win-win mentality. It was the, how do we move through this process of coming out of this awakening and ending up in a position or a space where we all can win and it's collective. And it always led back to love. And so in the post, I started off with the whole concept of, love. And then of course, remembering Martin Luther King's famous quote about love and how that's the only thing that could, literally like surpass or beat anything. Hate cannot do it. Love can only do that. And so that was the premise of the post. And I felt like it was an important message because it not only resonates within me, but I know for a fact that it is the one thing that can keep us connected in moving forward. So that was the premise and the foundation of thought process through that post.
Well, thank you so much for letting us speak to your art today. And you are here today not only as an inspirational member of the Multicultural Bridal Council, but also as a digital marketing optimization expert. So much of what we discussed this summer when we talked about the racial justice movement was about the concept of ensuring that the messages we put out in the world represent what we're doing in our true lives, so that they were participative, not performative. And you give such fabulous guidance to retailers about how they can create content that reflects the reality of the experience that they provide, rather than just content for content's sake. And I think that is one of those pieces where you are both walking the walk and then also guiding people on how they can do it as well. Because I think that's one of the complications right now. We don't know what to do. We don't know how to join into this cause in this conversation.
Exactly. And it's so funny when I think about it, like if you think about pre-millennial bride, the millennial bride before this part where everybody was like, oh my goodness, I don't know how to market to this girl. It was all about showing your credibility. The way that people were marketing was very much on this, like, we are here and you are there scenario. So you didn't necessarily know the people behind the businesses. You didn't really know their values. You didn't know what they were feeling until Enter the Millennial Bride. Once that happened, it changed from this concept of I am selling to you to I am now connecting to you. And I think that's really the transformation, and I guess the space that we're in right now is now how to further connect. And I think with this new awakening brings up a whole bunch of questions, because these are things that lot of my bridal salon stores that I work with didn't have to necessarily think about, because it wasn't part of their psyche at the time. And so that's why I think this is such an important conversation to have. And I didn't say this before I started, but I wanted to say I'm honored that you found inspiration in this post, and honored to be here with these amazing powerhouse women who, I mean, Meredith and I know each other and have known each other. So, you know, I've had the honor of always collaborating and being friends with her, but with Lyris, it's just an honor to be on this platform with you and to speak on behalf of this important topic.
Well, and when it comes to our third panelist, this is a woman who needs no introduction, a fabulously talented actress, model, and activist. And one of the things that I have found so inspirational from you, Lyris, is that you have found a way to make art from your activism. You are just in a creative vortex right now of sharing your truth and your experience, but also in a way that inspires the rest of us to feel like, I can join you on this journey. So share with us a little bit about your experience of leaning into this conversation that we're having right now, Lyris.
Well, I mean, hello, everybody in the room. Thank you so much for joining us. First of all, I am so excited to hear about the different people who RSVP'd. And I always love when people want to be a sponge and just gain perspective. So for me, I'm a model. I love modeling. Modeling is an art form, and I feel like I am walking art. So I can express my activism, of course, through my voice, but I can also do it through pictures, through video. And I love doing that, whether it's a t-shirt I'm wearing, because I know you love my t-shirt, phenomenally Black. It's like, do your part as far as activism, but make it fashion for me. So it's been fun exploring different ways to get my message across. And I am just thankful that I'm able to work with the company that, you know, is open to seeing me express my Blackness, my curves, my voice in various ways, and who is also helping to do their part to be a champion for change and diversity and inclusion as well. But one thing that I want to touch on really, really quickly is the power of pictures. We see, I forgot what the statistic was, but we see thousands of pictures in a day, more than we see words, really. Like, think about it. People can place a picture on Instagram and it can get a reaction, and it doesn't even have a caption sometimes. So that tells you how powerful an image is. And I know how powerful my image has been just working with Maggie Sottero, with plus size brides, being able to say that they are able to imagine themselves in a dress because I saw Lyris in this dress, or Black brides saying, wow, you know, I didn't even know about this company, but I'm gonna I'm gonna check out Maggie Sottero because they have this beautiful Black plus size model that they're using. So representation matters, and seeing those images of ourselves matter. And that is activism in itself, even though I know a lot of companies are just booking a model because they are like, oh, okay, I like her. Because that's what I genuinely feel Maggie Sottero did. They found out about me from a referral and just said, okay, we're gonna put her on hold. But they don't know that when I, as a Black plus size woman, when I'm seen in mainstream media or in ads for Maggie Sottero, there's a whole other market of women who it is resonating with them on a different level, where they're like, this is activism in another way. And they don't even know it's activism. The fact that they're centering her and using her and platforming her, that is helping to create change, especially within the bridal market, which we know a lot of times all of the brides are, you know, white women. Let's just keep it real. So I'm excited to continue to be an activist, but also a curvy spokesperson for Maggie Sottero.
Well,
Thank you, Lyris.
I think one of the things that you did just this month that I found so inspiring is that while I always find your messages are so filled with compassion, they're also filled with pride. And you posted a picture of yourself absolutely standing in your power and your beauty with the caption, "I am Black history." And that moment of you kind of stepping forward and recognizing that, because that is the truth. You are Black history. You are part of the movement. And so many beautiful little girls are going to see those pictures and they're going to feel that compassion that you represented in those images.
Yes, I mean, that pride goes a long way, and it's amazing. I mean, I've had quite a few different historic things, being the first Black model or the first Black plus model for quite a few things in the industry over the years. But, you know, just a simple booking as, hey, Lyris, do you want to go to Barcelona to walk the Barcelona Bridal Fashion Week? Little did we know we were making history having me be the first Black plus size model to walk that show. So this is why allyship is important, and just, you know, somebody referring me to somebody else, how that helps to put money in my pocket and helps me to take care of my community, helps me to take care of my family, which goes back to what Meredith was saying. And you know, it's all about pride to a certain degree, but it's also about compassion. And you and I talked about this before, Stacey, because we have to have compassion within this industry. And I know our retailers who are here on the call, you have to practice a lot of compassion sometimes when you're having distraught brides come into your stores. But I want you to think about the level of compassion you need when it's a Black bride or a Hispanic bride or an Asian bride or a disabled bride. A lot of times we just need to be able to put ourselves in someone else's shoes so we can think about, are we, you know, marketing to this customer? Does that customer feel safe? Do they feel seen with us? And this is why you have to tap into your compassion, which also flows over to what Myrna was saying about love. You know, tap into that love, tap into that compassion, because when you really utilize that, especially in your business, people are going to feel it. And they want something. We're in an age of authenticity. People want to feel something. So give them something they can feel and put yourself in other people's shoes so you could really make the changes that need to happen within our industry.
Well said.
And I think when you talk about that, oh, sorry, Myrna, what was that?
No, because she triggered something for me, and you know me, the scientist, I'm breaking down the how. I think a lot of times when it comes to content specifically, people don't realize, and Lyris said this, you know, an image is worth 1,000 words. There is context that happens with that image. And I think what we're really trying to say here is interconnection is huge. Context is huge, meaning you need to be able to think before and after of what's happening in that moment, because that is going to be the building blocks and the connection of dots that bring you forward. And that's a huge thing. And I think when it comes to marketing, when it comes to taking the next steps, you always have to think, where was I before? And then you go forward. So you always have to think of the before and after and make context of it in order for it to, one, be seen as authentic, and two, get you to the place that you want to get to, because eventually you will get there. But I think a lot of people don't realize the importance of, you know, to Lyris's point, like making that compassion be a major driver, because it will give you context so that your content can then be authentic. So I just want to put that in there.
As you give us the second C, you know, Lyris, you gave us the first C, compassion. You gave us the second fabulous C, context. I think there's also the component of curiosity. So Meredith, you recommended that I study up a little bit more on Anne Cole Lowe, who designed Jacqueline Kennedy's wedding dress. And I found this fabulous book, Fancy Party Gowns. And when it came to my house, I thought, this is the exact type of book that 7-year-old me would have loved.
Mhm.
And then I reflected on the fact that 7-year-old me wouldn't have picked up this book because there's something in our culture that would tell me that it wasn't for me,
Yep.
that it was,
Bingo.
that it was, mhm. And so starting to have that curiosity where we no longer look at Black art, white art, Asian art, and it's just art. It truly is that multicultural influence. And we look for ways to let our curiosity explore cultures that aren't our own. In that exploration, you're going to develop respect. You're going to develop compassion. You're going to develop understanding and relationships. So oftentimes it starts from the place of curiosity, asking why, asking more, even just, of course, I want to read a book about fancy party gowns. And then before you know it, that curiosity turns into something so much more. So as I was preparing, oh, sorry, what was that, Lyris?
Oh no, I love that you brought that up because I was in a Clubhouse room. I don't know if you guys are on Clubhouse, follow me. But anyway, I was in a Clubhouse room the other night and we were having a talk about Black love movies and or Black love stories in movies. And people were saying that, you know, for long it's been said that, you know, because we live in America, and America, you know, the biggest race is are white people, or Caucasian people. They may not be able to connect to our stories of love, and it's a shame that it has been conditioned that way a lot of times. Oh, well, this, you know, that's a movie that has a bunch of Black actors, so that's not a movie for us. But we never look at, you know, Jennifer Aniston and Brad Pitt and say, oh my goodness, I can't watch this love story because it has two white people, you know? No, like our love is unique to us, but it's going to be unique to you too, and you're going to be able to find pieces of your love within that person's love story. So this is why we really have to normalize race, different races within all avenues, whether not just bridal, but in the movies we watch, in the books we read. I think it's very transparent for you to say, if you would have got that book when you were a little girl, you might have looked at it and said, oh, well, this book probably isn't for me. But that's the aha moments that we have to have for us to really start to have that compassion, to really step outside of ourselves and say, why am I not exploring this? Why am I not seeing what's going on in this culture? Why am I not picking up that book, watching that movie? So I'm so glad that you said that.
And along that journey, so talking about that context, talking about exploring it, when I was looking at Myrna's post and I was seeing these gorgeous quotes from Dr. King, I was realizing that I don't have the depth of context that I would want. And so, because what I do is read, I started reading. And one of the things you learn when you read, you know, much of Dr. King's works at all is that it all comes from a foundation of great scholarship and a great passion for the words of the Declaration of Independence in the United States, and words that actually really reflect for all of us, whether you're an American or not. We hold these truths to be self-evident, that all men are created equal, that they are endowed by their creator with inalienable rights. Among these, life, liberty, and the pursuit of happiness. And that to secure these rights, governments are instituted among men, deriving their just powers from the consent of the governed. And
Very
so,
good.
as we talk today, we're not just going to talk about life, liberty, and the pursuit of happiness. There's also that important context of consent. And Dr. King talking about the element of that there was a lack of consent in our country for far too long, and still even today, for Black people to have consent for the way that they're governed. And so, you know, we can't just look at the word love and life and liberty and happiness. We also need to embrace that concept of consent. But first, let's start with love, because I think that message of love is one of the things that has made Dr. King's works resonate for so long with so many of us. So Myrna, I am going to switch over my screen here for just a moment, and let's talk about that first post that you had put in your Instagram statement. So you started with the love statue. And with that, you used the phrase, I have decided to stick with love. Hate is too great a burden to bear. And oftentimes when people talk about love, they don't realize that Dr. King spent a lot of time defining terms, really making sure that it was understood what he was talking about when he was saying love. And he explored the concepts of Greek love. So you've got eros, that erotic love that we all hope to have, where we're going to fall in love and have our happily ever after and get our wedding dress. We have philia, the friendship, the family, the camaraderie. We also have storge. But the love that Dr. King was talking about is the concept of agape, brotherly love, and the responsibility that we all have to care for each other, to love each other as a verb. So Myrna, share a little bit from a digital marketing strategy, why this message was important to you to include in the works of Dr. Martin Luther King when you were talking about equality and equity.
Well, yeah, sure. Like I would say this, even though it's the digital space, before we got to the digital space, and this is something I always tell all of my clients as well, to make sure that their analog or their non-digital self matches their digital self. I had it was one day when I was watching like the Today Show months ago, where there was a story about Judge Esther Salas, who had unfortunately lost her son and had her husband shot at her house at the doorstep. And she was telling her story. And when she said her story, she said this quote, she was like, hate is heavy and love is light. And I was like, oh my goodness, it like shook me to the core, because in all the things that we have been experiencing over the past year and a half now, it was one of those things that's like, oh my goodness, like so many people have this hate in their hearts that it's work. Like that is hard work. You know, I'd rather be on the light side and have it so that I don't have to put much forth effort to live. And so it started actually from that, which was back in November. And so of course, coming back to this time, thinking about Dr. Martin Luther King, and then thinking about, you know, moving forward and also going into Black History Month, the theme of love resonated with me one more time. And to your point, it was the agape or the agape love that was in my mind. Because for someone to have her son killed at her doorstep and for her to still be able to forgive and speak to the person who shot her son is totally a brotherly love type of scenario, which is what we need to instill today. So that's where it all started. And then I thought from a digital standpoint, I need to make this post very relevant and authentic to me. And so the picture that I took, that love statue, was during bridal market, one bridal market when we were in New York, when we could do that eons ago. And I thought, how can I connect those dots and make it relatable? So whenever I'm thinking of digital marketing strategy, I start with like the big picture, a helicopter view of the topic, the category, the keyword, as people would say in the world of digital marketing. And then I hone in from there to make it authentic to myself. And so that's what started me with putting that picture with that quote.
We've got a great comment here from the chat, and it's about being able to relate to others at so many levels, even if they don't look like you. And when you talk about forgiveness, that was something that Dr. King talked about a lot, but he didn't talk about forgiveness in a passive sense of allowing for a continued injustice. He believed that the highest form of love is for me to hold you accountable and responsible and bring you along. And so in that speech where Dr. King talks about, I have decided to stick with love, he also makes it very clear what love looks like. And that love looks like explaining things, holding ourselves accountable, holding others accountable, believing truly that we shall overcome and I will not be deterred. But then also, as you are on your journey, that I will educate you, I will not humiliate you as you explore and you study these ideas. And I think that's something that so many shops are a little bit nervous about is, can I step into this space without doing it wrong and feeling the wrath of cancel culture? And I think, Lyris, if there's anybody that understands what it feels like to have a very big platform where a lot of people are going to have a lot of opinions, it's you. So share with us a little bit of your perspective on what it means to stand in love and to show love throughout this process.
Ooh, I can't wait to hear what Myrna has to say about this as well, since she's the digital marketer. But I recently had a conversation with a model influencer friend who said, she felt like, during the awakening, because she has a large following, she felt like, a lot of people felt like, well, you should say something, you should say something. And sometimes we could get so struck with fear that we do nothing. And the thing is, you really have to push through that fear. If we're, we just talked about compassion and curiosity. If you go down your feed and you see that you really haven't featured any other brides of color, let's say you're not even getting a lot of different brides of color. Are there images from, from the clothing company or from previous brides that you're able to use? So that way you're reaching back and marketing to that person. How are you really, let me rephrase this. It's so easy to let your fear take over. But it takes much strength to push through. And God didn't make any weaklings. We're not weak people. We have choice. So we have to push through and do the right thing. A lot of people want to have this kumbaya, conversation. But the thing is, you have to do work. It's nice for you to say, oh, no, I see you and I understand and Black Lives Matter. But where is the work? And it doesn't have to be this overwhelming, blaring thing that you do. There are small ways that you can show, whether you're a bride retailer or you're an influencer, by giving voice and equity to other people, putting them in a position so they could get paid. That, if that person is an influencer, okay, you got called for this campaign and that there's another great Black influencer that really doesn't get those same opportunities, that isn't able to make that same amount of money. Are you sharing, hey, this company booked me for this amount of money and I'm going to refer them to you because they need to use you? Or I've even seen different influencers as well as models now saying, hey, if you're going to use me for this campaign, then you need to also book this person and pay them the same rate. Because some people may not know this. There have been times within the industry, in the modeling industry, where Black models have been paid less rather than white models. It still happens to this day. Just because they feel like, well, I mean, their reach is not as much. So, we only have this in the budget for that model. That's not right, So we really have to step outside ourselves and push past the fear. Stacey, I've talked in my book about surrender. If you don't have my book, get my book, Make the World Your Runway, Top Model Secrets for Everyday Confidence and Success. But I have a piece in the book, and Stacey brought it to mind because she's just that awesome. On page 57, this part is called Surrender. And it says, I need to surrender when I'm holding on to people or circumstances too tightly. I need to surrender when my mind is needlessly wrapped up in the futility of worrying. I need to surrender when fear is trying to break my heart and snuff out my hope. So look, there are a lot of people out there who have hope. They want to see a better world. Well, guess what? You're going to have to surrender to what is happening in our world and push past that fear and really make those changes. So Myrna, what are some of the changes that they can do?
One of the changes that they can do, which I think, you honed in on it. I always tell every one of my clients, I have a whole methodology called digital media optimization. DMO is what I call it. 3 elements in order to have solid DMO. It is having great content that is authentic, being relevant with that content, and doing it on a frequent basis. And so in what she's talking about, pushing through that fear, it does not necessarily mean that you're placing a post like, okay, we're going to check off and say we have a post of a Black bride on Monday and then on Thursday and Friday. It could be something as simple as sharing in your stories something that celebrates or that showcases or that shows representation of a Black bride or a Black model or something. So it's ways that you can do this and incorporate the relevancy factor in bringing yourself from that fearful state to being more into the cultural DNA of it just naturally being part of your existence. So I think there's so many different ways, and I don't have like one prescription for everyone because everyone's different. I never diagnose the same client the same way and actually provide the same insight, but there is always a way to infuse, to interrupt a little bit of the normalcy that you've had and go into a new norm with a strategy. So there's so many ways that you can do it. But to your point, Lyris, I mean, again, depending on the comfortability factor, depending on whether or not they have perspective, because that's a big part of it, that curiosity and perspective is also a big factor. But now's the time to start exploring it for sure, because at the end of the day, that's the only way you're going to get from point A to point B.
And in that same speech, Dr. King gave us some guidance, and I'm going to ask you what this means to you, Meredith, but he talks about what we can do to dig deeper and to surrender to that process. When our days become dreary with low hovering clouds of despair, and when our nights become darker than 1,000 midnights, let us remember that there is a creative force in this universe working to pull down the gigantic mountains of a power that is able to make a way out of no way and transform dark yesterdays into bright tomorrows. Let us realize that the arc of the moral universe is long, that it bends toward justice. So when you think about sort of that direct embrace of action in pursuit of justice, Meredith, what do you see as some direct steps that we can take to help lift each other economically as well?
We have to remember that Dr. King was a minister first. He was a minister that became an activist, not by choice, but by necessity, because he, being a Black man, saw a group of people that looked like him that weren't given the opportunities. If people actually look at not just that I have a dream speech, all his speeches, there's this underlining tone of equality across the board, even with the people in which he was addressing, the governmental officials and the bus companies, the sanitation companies. He wasn't fighting for Black people. He made speeches that included Black, Mexicans, Hispanics, Native Americans, poor white indigenous people, everybody. He wasn't excluding anyone. It wouldn't have been wise for him to do so, because there was a part of one of his speeches where he was a man that believed in collaboration. I don't know if anybody had an opportunity to see Regina King's movie, One Night in Miami. It's a brilliant conversation of Black men, for Black men that general population wouldn't have thought would have had these conversations. It wasn't about taking over the white man, the white country, and woe is me and whatever. It was hardcore conversation about what they can do to elevate their community, their culture, and use their status. And a person that, you know, which breaks my heart, is often left out when we talk about Black history, is Malcolm X. Why? Because he was a bit abrasive for some people. They didn't like his approach, they didn't whatever. But was the man speaking truth? Absolutely. But they will pit Malcolm X and Dr. King against each other as though they were not working for the same thing. They were working for the exact same thing, but with different approaches. And just like in an army, there's soldiers that take orders and there's soldiers that give orders, but there's a general purpose in mind. And so for us, it wasn't a battle about white against Black when I hear his speeches, because he was a minister. And as a person, as a woman, a servant of God, I listened to the 2 commandments: love God with your whole heart, your whole mind, and your whole soul, and love your neighbor like yourself. So if I have love for myself and love for God, there's no way I can starve you, keep a job from you. Like Lyra said, you know, you hire me, you got to give her the same amount of money. You know how many times people have dismissed Black people, Black businesses, because they don't look like them? But it doesn't hurt just that one person. You hurt a whole community. The economy is not failing right now or struggling right now because Black people have COVID. The whole world has COVID. So you can't isolate situations based on groups of people, because at some point it's gonna come home. So I believe that love, you have to first love yourself. God first, love yourself, or whatever you want to call your spiritual being. But if you have nothing, no sense of accountability to nothing else other than yourself, yes, there's room for selfishness. That means your business can't grow. What you do will never go beyond your immediate circle. And selfishness, I don't see how that works for any of us. My collaboration, my work with Lyris years ago, it wasn't even recently. We didn't know each other yesterday. We didn't meet when she did my cover. This is years of following her. This is years of when I was a manicurist and I used to be like, oh my God, this woman is gorgeous. She was the hottest thing out and was crossing over slowly. And now look at her now. She has evolved, she pivoted, and she didn't leave it just for herself. She said, let me bring others with me. I'm now, because of those kind of actions, I'm now on working with the Bridal Council, where Myrna and I, we didn't just meet yesterday. We knew each other from walking in the show when we were the only 2 Black people in the room. Maybe 3 or 4 others were in the room. But the consistency, the Black girl nod, the I see you, I'm going to make sure you get in this door attitude is what we had to do. But we never discount the fact that our white allies are there to support us and encourage us and help us. I have great mentors, Lisa Hanley, Lisa from the CFDA. You know, I have Beverly Johnson, people that are iconic figures, you know, Mickey Taylor, that have held my hands through it. So how dare I think that I'm selfish, I could be selfish and my community is going to benefit from it. So for me, love and economy work hand in hand, you know, and if we want to be real with ourselves, your business can't grow with just you in it. It can't. If you want, and now with the internet, and this is where I guess I know for a fact Myrna's skills come in, is the internet has made everybody your neighbor from around the world. So you could be selfish, but that to me, Meredith Leon-McCormack only equals stupidity. So leave the Black dollar at the table, you've let a whole lot. And we can't pick and choose when Black is appropriate. You know, you're Black and you're cute for the Black market, but you can take Black music, you're influenced by Black music, Black fashion, Black culture, and you appropriate it to white standard, excluding the group that you stole it from, and you wonder why they're mad. think they're trying to beat your door down and say you can't have it, but it's like, why can't I eat with you? There's enough for all of us to eat. And I feel that's where the challenge is. And, you know, I like Lyris pointed out, I don't know anybody that watched or read the book Romeo and Juliet and said, I can't relate to this white love and all of that. We're inspired by the very one thing, love, commitment, marriage. And that's why we're all in this business. And if we were all honest with ourselves, first with ourselves, you have to be honest with yourself and look in the mirror and say, hey, what am I doing? And you cannot, I'm sorry, this is no excuse for me. No, you can't fly this in front of my eyes that you don't see color. You absolutely went into that room, in that desk, and saw there was only white people. And if you didn't see it and you didn't recognize it, you should not be in the fashion industry because it's dominated by color and texture.
Mhm.
How do you not see it? Be honest and say, I didn't want that market, or I don't know enough about that market to try it and to see and to understand it. But since I don't know it, you know, I think it was Rockefeller that made the statement. Rockefeller, somebody said to him, and it was somebody that was in a big meeting, they were in a room together, and the person asked him a question and he couldn't answer it. And they started to laugh at him. And he said to him, you don't even know the answer. And his response was, I don't need to know the answer. I pay people to know the answer. So when you don't know the answer, it's okay to hire people within you. To me, that's how love and economic works and benefit and helps each other to prosper, you know.
And that brings us perfectly to our next phrase from Dr. King, where he talks about the concept of creative altruism. So this is from The 3 Dimensions of a Complete Life. Every man must decide whether he will walk in the light of creative altruism or in the darkness of destructive selfishness. So Myrna, share some perspective from a digital marketing strategy about how we can more creatively walk in that creative altruism. You know, how can we take that and apply that into our own messaging?
So here's the challenge with the digital marketing and altruism, because being selfless in business, sometimes people equate that to I'm not going to make any money. So they tend to think the goal is no, I need to increase my exposure, get as many customers as I can, and if it means that, you know, I got to push out the next person, I will do that so that I can rise higher. And I think that's actually the mindset shift that needs to like really shift here, because that's not necessarily the case anymore. Again, in the world that we live in and the way that consumers absorb content, the way that consumers want to feel that the shift needs to happen where you're thinking more from that abundance standpoint and building community. Because I mean, I did a conversation and a talk for businesses to say how technology has played a role specifically during this pandemic. And I was like, oh my gosh, there were these other 3 C's. It allowed for you to connect, it allowed for you to communicate, and it allowed for you to establish or maintain some sense of community. And I think when it comes to community, it is so important to take these micro steps, and it is going to be something where it's one step at a time, where you can build your audience by one, not necessarily pushing down that other person, but including everyone, because we all realize that there's an interconnectivity happening. And the only way we're all going to win is if we actually connect. And so in the world of bridal, where love is the common denominator, it's such an easy play to play off of. To Lyris's point, to Meredith's point, Romeo and Juliet, we all could relate to that story. You know, just watching, you know, Titanic and seeing that love, so we all could relate to that story, you know, even though there weren't any Black people on that ship. It's like, except for the servants probably, but
there was a Haitian family on that ship. We know, Myrna.
I should know that there was a Haitian person on that ship. Oh my goodness. But yeah, so having love be the common denominator, it is such a simple space to start in order to build that creative altruism that we want to have. Because I think it can be seen, to your point, you know, Stacey, there are different types of love. It does not necessarily have to be that you're always showcasing, you know, the bride and groom, or bride and bride, or groom and groom love. It could be just, your team. It could be, just other things that are happening in the industry that you're seeing happen. Like, love is the common denominator, I think, that we can then stem from and build from in order to establish the community, because that's at the end of the day what will sell. And we all know this. Community is like the new thing and a new currency in the digital marketing space.
So along those lines, it can be as simple as starting to follow people in your local community. And when you find a local Black photographer or florist or caterer who you love, you feel like this company is doing amazing things, create those collaborative opportunities, share their content, do a styled shoot together, create an event together. If you have a bride who comes into your boutique and you weren't able to find the right dress for her, do you have a list of some local Black owned businesses that you can refer her to? Those are some opportunities where we can love each other through direct action instead of through that fear of, well, I don't want to seem that I'm judging people by the color of their skin. I want to judge people from the content of their character, but we have to see people's skin. Like Meredith was saying, of course you can see that I'm blonde haired with blue eyes. Yeah, like, of course we can see the color of someone's skin. And so it's a new way of moving forward with, I see that you're a Black owned business, and I want to be able to celebrate that in my local community.
And I just want to add to that statement that you made, and yes, you want to find ways to collaborate with Black artists. It doesn't mean you have to pick any Black person because they're Black. Hey, you're Black, let's go. No, they may not fit your business standard, your model, and whatever it is. And we're okay with that. But to be fair, are we being even interviewed? And that's what I loved about working with Beverly Johnson. She created this Beverly Johnson rule where at least, can I get an interview? Before you told me no, did you look at my resume? Did you see my portfolio? And at this point in this day and age, going back to Myrna, you can go on Instagram and Google somebody and you'll find out everything. So it's okay for you to say no to a Black person. But when you start saying no to every Black person on every level, you may want to look at yourself and say, hey, what's wrong with this? And it is something that society has conditioned us to for years. This didn't happen overnight. It didn't happen in a vacuum. It didn't just pop up and all of a sudden, but this is something that's generationally passed on, systemic in so many horrific ways. But it takes a leader, one leader, to say, you know what, I can lose, but I'm willing, because I won if I did this one act of love, and then you could pull out the Christian card, but they're doing more damage saying that they're Christian, showing separatism. To me, I don't know anybody that's impressed with a Christian that only has one group of people and say, well, I'm not racist. No, but you have racist tendency or behavior, and so at the end, and even from the business perspective, is it smart business? Aren't we all trying to make some money? And then later on, the rules would follow. The rules that are set before us will start to create that curiosity that you were talking about, Stacey, that we become, hey, why is Black hair this way? Oh, I didn't know Black hair could do this. Oh, I didn't know you needed to be lit a different way. Oh, I didn't know. And that's where we get excited about explaining it. But when you exclude us completely, I can't even explain it, and you can't justify it to me. So I'm already shut down. So that's my 2 cents.
I think that's, and I want to add to that too, real quick, about what's happening. I think we've been talking a lot about the awakening of, the whole, oh my goodness, Black Lives Matter, which has been going on for decades, centuries now. But I think there's also another awakening that happened with the pandemic. Like, having the two dichotomies happen at the same time has been amazing. And that awakening is the interconnectivity of everything. So it's like, if you are suffering, chances are your neighbor is also suffering too. That whole, we're all in this together thing is like the new mindset that I think people need to not just adopt, but create it in their corporate and their cultural DNA of their business. Because without leveling everyone up, you're not going to rise. And we're at that stage now where it's going to impact you in a negative way if you don't. So I think that's the other thing I think people need to realize. It didn't happen by accident that we would have this pandemic that would make everyone, lock down and pause for a
Slow
second
down and
during the same time as, oh my goodness, I had no idea that this was happening when oh no, this has been happening for centuries, y'all. We're just awakening you again to let you know it does matter.
right.
So I think it's
Also-
like, now's the time to really take that in.
Also,
Well,
I
and
was going to say
sorry.
about, sorry about that. I was going to say about community. It's really, I talk to different people regarding, different things that they're doing on social media for their stores, for their brands. And I think that's because people come to me because they know my heart. I'm not really about cancel culture. I'm more about accountability culture. And that's why you can make a mistake. Just it's where do you build from that mistake? You saw that you weren't doing this. What's your next step to turn that around? So, and this is the thing, once you start to implement these changes, it doesn't mean that everything is going to shift and be perfect just because you started, if you weren't posting Black people or Asian people or Latino people before, guess what? You're going to have to now normalize that in your feed. Well, we don't really get, we tried it and we only got 2 likes on it. We didn't get that much engagement. Well, guess what? You have to think, this is where we get back to compassion again. You have to be compassionate about the fact that you weren't really showing this sector of people. And then you have to key into community. Some things aren't about the likes, some things are about building community. And the one thing is, once you get a really good, tight-knit community, guess what? One person tells one person, they tell the other person, hey, I got my dress from Maggie. Who's your dress by? It's by Maggie Sottero. Where'd you go? Oh, I went to this store. They were really, really good. And you know what? They had some pictures of all these different brides in their store. It really made me feel comfortable. You never know. Some things are not about necessarily the money. It's about the community.
And then the money will come.
You can make the collateral once you build the community.
Exactly.
Well, and that to me gets my brain spinning about our third quote, where we talk about the concept that injustice anywhere really reflects, that you have injustice within. So it becomes a threat to justice everywhere. So when we're having that conversation about how we're stepping forward into the conversation about racial equity, if I see that I have a social feed that is very vanilla, that for me shines the light on the fact that, well, is my interaction in every day limited to one race? And Meredith, you used a phrase that I just thought, yeah, I connected with. You talked about we can all eat. Equality is not pie. Me having a slice of equality doesn't mean that there are fewer slices of equality for lyrists. The pie expands. And that was one of the things that Dr. King was talking about, is that as we raise each other up, as we eliminate these injustices and we create a more just society, then Meredith, what you're talking about, we start to see these communities rise up and have more buying power. We start to see that people are connected to our business and they want to come in and they want to shop with us and they want to engage with us, right? I mean, it's one feeds the other and that all comes together. And I can't see that there's injustice over here and see that people need my assistance and then expect someone else will take care of it, right? This is now all on us to focus on. So Myrna, how can we make it clear that we are examining ourselves and do it in a way that doesn't negatively reflect, hey, here's where we were before, but it's just a way for us to move forward, because that's another thing some shops are afraid of. My first post where I'm trying to reflect diversity, are people going to call me out? Oh, well, you're posting someone because they're Black. Like how do I take that first step in trying to eliminate that?
So the first thing, I think we talked about this a little yesterday during our pre-call, is ask when you're not sure. And that means, again, the whole community scenario. If you do not have someone in your community that can provide you insight on a different perspective that you may not have because they, you didn't have their life experience, you didn't have that experience, the best thing is to do is ask first. And that would be whether it's, a colleague, whether it's, another business owner, not even in the bridal industry, but just ask, and that'll at least get you to the next step, which I know that's one of my posts, is the whole next step thing. But that's the first place I would start if you're not sure. I also think that, when you are doing this, it's like honing in on your authentic space as to where you are is important. So not to say that you go from all of a sudden you were all vanilla, and then next thing you know, you just totally flip the script and it's like a whole bunch of Black models on your feed. It actually is you steering a ship and getting there so that it can seem authentic. Because here's the reality: these consumers, people with disabled or disabilities, any minority, anybody of color, we are raw and we are having a lack of trust right now. So you have to establish and build that trust, just as you would courting a person that you want to friend or have some kind of relationship with. You need to think, how can I show up so that I can help build and establish trust? So if it's not you asking someone, it's you really coming in and thinking authentically, how can you make this real to you? Like, for example, I had a client where she's in an area where there aren't that many women that come to her store that are of a different demographic. But what she did do is she went in and actually she had like maybe out of her 20 brides, she had like 2 of them. She literally went in and called those 2 brides and actually did like a little conversation with them, a live little story, because they were recent brides, to share their experience at her store. And I was like, that in itself, just showing that you have the ability to, again, lift up, showcase, and represent is enough. And so I always tell people that there's always ways that you can infuse this into your dialogue. It could be as simple as purchasing a book, having Lyris's book on a counter with a beautiful floral arrangement, showcases that, oh my goodness, there's a Black model, you have this book, I'm pimping you out, Lyris, that, showcases that you are open and that you actually love to showcase things of this nature. That is another way that you can show your love and support. So there are so many different ways you can do it without having that bride show up in your store, or having the proper visual representation that you could put up and post. But yeah.
Mm-hmm. So if we move into our beautiful final quote that was in your presentation, this is the one where I think we have the opportunity to ask ourselves this question, and that is, what does my first step look like? I don't see the whole staircase, but I'm ready to take the first step. So Lyris, as we look at ourselves, our businesses, our communities, what do you think we can do right now, to take our first step?
Oh, the first step is self-reflection.
Winner.
Reflection, really taking inventory of yourself as well as your business. What have we done well? What could we do better? How can we reach this customer? How have I maybe been biased about the staff that I've hired? Have I not, looked outside my regular scope of people to add someone of color in a different perspective to, to the office to give, because this is the thing, it's great for me to be in front of the camera, but I need people who are behind the camera as well to help create the change. The reason why you see me working with Maggie Sottero is because 2 Black women at Curvaceous Couture Bridal spoke up and said, you know, there's this girl, Lyra, she's from Baltimore. She's, you know, she's doing her thing. I think she would be really good for you all.
Yeah.
So because they were behind the scenes and not in front of the camera, they helped to create the change. And look at the domino effect that has happened since I've started to work with Maggie Sottero. So,
and I think when you talk about self-reflection, on our first webinar series, you had given me a reading list. And so I did my reading. And one of the books that you recommended to me that triggered me, I didn't want to read this. I didn't like the title. I am not fragile. Robin DiAngelo in this book talks about the lie we have been told. And the lie we have been told is that racists are bad. And if you have racism in you, that makes you a bad person. And then when you tell me that, then I'm not open to self-reflection because I'm a good person. If we flip the dialogue to instead say what you had said, Meredith, I have been programmed to have all of this misinformation, lack of curiosity, lack of exposure, lack of opportunity to develop relationships with people in the Black community because I live in the white part of town. If I, instead of feeling like racism is bad, I am not a racist, therefore there's nothing within me. If I instead say, I'm going to take that moment of honest self-reflection and just ask, do I have Black friends? Am I attracting members of colors of community into my business? Do I hide the name on a resume so that I'm reading the resume purely looking at experience and not judging the name of the person? Even those little things, when we start opening ourselves up to those conversations, we will discover so many opportunities for us to create more equity. And when you do it outside of judgment, now I'm free to truly explore because I'm embracing it with my whole heart. My whole heart is in doing what I can do. So Meredith, what do you think is the first step that we can take forward in faith?
I agree with Lyris. Self-reflection is the first and foremost. And then the next thing is, what's your intention? Examine your intention and your motives behind what you're doing. We're all in business. This is about a business. This conversation is happening because we're all in business together. You know, 9 out of 10, usually friendships follow with it. We meet in business and then friendship follows. So I think we need to examine intention and motive and develop relationships where I feel comfortable asking you questions and comfortable making statements. I have a dear friend, dear friend, a couple of dear friends that are my biggest advocate. 2 white women that will hold my right and my left hand. Literally, when I say I've had enough, I'm not messing with white folks no more. I'm done. I'm tired of begging and they don't listen. They don't hear. She goes, and who are we? You know, so I had to stop and listen and they had to tell me, we didn't learn this. We didn't know this. We didn't grow up in the community with you. And I'm looking at it from the eye of saying, well, it's common sense. And I had to chill and listen myself and get out of my pain for the moment to hear you and see whether or not it was innocent or done intentionally. But you had to be willing to hear my pain and understand. And I think that's why, Stacey, you and I hit it off so quickly after Lyris invited me to the first conversation. It's because you were willing to listen. You were able to face that white fragility and realize like, oh my God, that might be me. That might have been my behavior. And I need to make adjustments, but I'm still running a business. And then say, how can I incorporate it? Because, and I say this to all my clients that are advertisers with us at World Bride Magazine, your success is my success. If you can't sell a dress, you can't advertise with me. If you can't advertise with me, I have nothing to do. There's no content to build. There's no magazines to sell. So if we somehow feel disconnected from each other, none of us wins. None of us wins. So for me, collaborations were so important. And I think, we have such a great conversation. You're like, hey, I want to be at the bridal council. What did I do? Send an email. I think Stacy, Maggie Sottero needs to be on the bridal council, and boom. And they listened. And they're like, you know what? Let's review that. Let's figure it out. So listen, be an ally wherever you are in position. I'm new to bridal council. I've known Lou and Michelle and Rachel for the 30 years of my fashion industry when I started as a celebrity manicurist, but I'm in a new space. They need to adjust to getting used to me in this position of editorial power that 9 out of 10, they may not have seen Black women that ran the publication. There may be doubts and, whatever it is. So am I willing to, prove myself? So I use this a lot when, I get angry and, my white girlfriends are there to hold me up. And I say, I'm going to do like T-Pain did. When I get kicked down and I finally make it, I'm going to show them and I'm going to give my award to all my haters. Thank you for inspiring me. Thank you for encouraging me. I didn't look at it as cancel culture. That's for me. I don't choose to. I don't. I just looked at it. Oh, you said I can't go there? You said I can't have this? You say I don't deserve this? Watch me get it. And that's where me and Lisa got along so well. And what did this white woman do? She picked up my hand while I was during New York Fashion Week, and she walked me I just finished doing the Vera Wang show, walked me in front of the camera and said, she's a manicurist. She's been working for Vera Wang for 15 years. She needs to be in the movie The Thames. And literally, she put me in there. She introduced me to Fern Malice. Fern Malice and Lisa Sinhanlick introduced me to the CFDA. The CFDA literally today emailed me and said, we would like to have a conference call with you and Cassandra, the new president, to talk about partnerships and everything else. Somebody else brought me into the NAACP, the United Negro College Fund, and said, we'd like for you to be on the leadership team. We'd like for you to do. I look for opportunities. Once the doors open for me, I look for opportunities to bring other people in. Latina bride. I have nothing to lose. I'm literally working with Mary, the owner of Black Brides. She's not my competition. She's my friend. She's a woman in business. She deserves to be in this space. I email Chike and Jacqueline of Montalucci Bride. They're not my competition. There's room enough for all of us. So again, it all goes back to intention. What is my intention? My intention is to show that there's not only one way of seeing Black women in business. There's a lot of us out there already. You just have to see us and give us the opportunity and stop stereotyping us and putting us in a box, because we want to push your business. Your success is our success, and our community benefits from it as a whole after.
Yes.
So Myrna, when we've done that, we've had that moment of self-reflection, we've taken that time to align our intentions. Now, how do we create content that reflects our actions? Like what is the mindset we should be embracing when it actually comes time to, now I've been participative, now I'm going to perform to the world to show the way that I am participating in this conversation?
Love it. Before I answer that question, I wanted to add one more thing, because I think a lot of people don't realize the steering of the ship that's happening again with things. And so Stephen Covey, love him, the 7 habits of highly effective people. He has one habit, number 4, which is all about win-win, which is, not necessarily this whole competition scenario. It's all about collaboration and cooperation, which is, again, based off of where we're coming from. I think people are starting to finally realize the importance of that interconnectivity. So I just wanted to put that in to say there are thought processes, mentality. And I will say too, it is definitely self-reflection, internal reflection, but it doesn't hurt to have someone also audit you as well. And I say that because a lot of times you may have the self-reflection and not be aware, because within your world and in your bubble, you still can't see another perspective. So bringing somebody else in to audit and or coach or give you guidance on your perspective is also important as well. So I wanted to add that in there. Okay, so what were you gonna say? Go ahead, Lyris.
Yeah, I love that you said that. Yes, having someone who's on the outside looking in. So, because a lot of times we're doing stuff and we don't even realize it, or we think we're okay and we're not. So I am so glad that you said that. And I'm serious, y'all, when I say self-reflection, it starts with you as far as taking that leap of faith. Because I, even as a minority, I do that self-reflection too. And I was telling the group that I said, I don't have enough Asian friends or know about Asian culture. So I've started to follow a lot of different people of an Asian background, so that way I can gain more perspective on their world and their voice and speak up for them as well.
Yeah, no,
Well,
that's huge. Even for me now, like I am actually engaging with people in the disability group because I'm working a lot on ADA compliance and all this tech stuff. And I was like, I need to understand inclusivity as a whole, and I cannot leave out one of the demographics. So I have been engaging, having conversation, like listening to them and even asking them questions. So to your point, Lyris, it's like stepping in to like get that feedback is important. Internal reflection is good, but you also might need to like engage so that you get feedback. So I don't think I even answered your question, Stacey, but you can go ahead.
I think you gave me more than what I asked for. So I think that was perfect, because that just, it inspires me to that process of, I'm going to ask questions of the people that are in my network. If I don't have anyone to ask those questions to, then that's my first step, right? I need to find someone who can help me audit my journey. If I don't even know how to start there, well, then maybe I need to do some reading. Maybe I need to do some Googling. And so everybody has a first step that is going to be unique to themselves. So much about it is an adage that my grandma actually had cross-stitched on a little sign in her house. And it said, do all the good you can, wherever you can, for as long as you can. And in the end, if the only good you could do was a tiny bit of good, reflect that you did what you could. And so it's that idea of, I'm going to do the piece I can do. And so many of us think about the piece that we've been inspired to do by Dr. King when he said, I have a dream that my 4 little children will one day live in a nation where they will not be judged by the color of their skin, but by the content of their character. But there was something else Dr. King said in that speech that I think is our takeaway for today. And that was this. Now is the time to make real the promises of democracy. Now is the time to rise from the dark and desolate valley to the sunlit path of justice. Now is the time to lift ourselves from the quicksands of injustice to the solid rock of brotherhood. Now is the time to make justice a reality. And so if each of us does the tiny little bit of good we can, the self-reflection that's available to us, the community building that we know as part of that journey, then we have a lot of people that are contributing to progress. And that's what we were trying to make happen, right, Meredith?
No, I think we made it happen just having this conversation.
Yes.
And the fact that it is an uncomfortable situation. And look what happened. Christina, you know Brooklyn. I'm in Brooklyn. You know, we have more in common, just our demographic of doing business and where we hang out and what we do, that we have something more in common than not. So for me, it's what's missing? What's missing? Just the desire, the courage to take that leap and say, yeah, you're different because you're different. I need to find out what makes you different, and we're going to try it. And we don't have enough of that. But then that's why there's 1% of the 1% that actually make it. We limit ourselves because of our fear, and we allow those who dare to take those risks move ahead of us and leave us behind. And I think that's where, you know, you got to listen to the Two Americas, the Other Americas speech, where Dr. King was fighting for poor white, Black, Hispanic, everybody. So this Dr. King wasn't for Black people. He wasn't doing Black History Month. He was literally fighting for equality and the dignity and honor of every human being living in a country that was designed, that was born of, fleeing from people that were living, you were leaving disparity in England or wherever else you came from, whatever part of the world. And the goal was you were going to create this new home that was going to be inclusive of everybody. And somehow you brought your dirty laundry with you and you refused to put that dirty baggage down. And now you've created a mess. But it's up to us individually, as a group, collectively, to come together, form alliances with each other and others that don't look like us, that have the same mission of solidarity and unity, you know, to say, yeah, I know we have a problem, but I think if you brought in this, I brought in this, do it like a dinner. Everybody bring a dish. How are we going to make this enjoyable for all of us? And that's why I chose to work with certain brands. Like, you know, I work with Cosiba. And he in turn introduced me to Sade of Inner Circle. Inner Circle now has introduced me to a global audience from Lebanon to England to Switzerland to Africa. The Bride Lux, I'm working with those amazing people. But if I was afraid, and you know, I'm a Black girl and they told me to stay in this black box, I would never have grown. But I also had to have the courage to say, you know what? They don't want to put Black girls on the cover of their magazines. I'm going to create my own. Not to insult you, but to give you fair competition and to highlight and celebrate the people that you don't want. And then you'll catch up. 21 years later, now everybody's talking about inclusivity. I'm not mad. In fact, I'm glad you caught up, but at least you caught up. So it's taking that courage and that leap and forming alliances with people like you, Maggie Sottero Group, you know, the Bridal Council, Myrna and Lyris, and saying, let's do it together collectively. And believe you me, we're gonna fight about it. You're gonna want to do it your way. I'm gonna want to do it my way. Take your boxing gloves, let's go. Yeah, and whatever, at the end of the day, we come out of the room, shake our dress, pull up your pantyhose and fix your lipstick, and we go out collectively, period. Because the mission is for us to be united. And just this panel alone, we as women, we already are second-class citizens. We're dealing with so much more. So if we can't get it together by ourselves, we're never gonna endure this fight. We're never. My last statement.
Thank you so much, Meredith. With that, I'm going to quote what Mackenzie just said in the chat. That is just, this is beautiful and powerful and empowering. And thank you so much, ladies, for joining us and sharing with us your talents, your expertise, your experience, and your wisdom and your love. At Maggie Sottero, we stand for love and love for everyone. And today, as we go into Valentine's weekend, the weekend to celebrate that love, this is a perfect opportunity for each of us to look for times and chances and choices that we make that can help us to love each other with a greater depth of feeling. So thank you so much to everyone for joining us today. I really appreciate getting to spend the afternoon with you fabulous women.
Thank you.
Wonderful to see you all here. Bye-bye.
Thank you everyone for joining.
Thank you. Thank you.
If nobody's told you that they love you, I love you. God loves you. Have a great day.
Yes. Yes. Thank you so much for the honor of the conversation and honoring so much more. This is huge. You have now set the tone for others to follow.
Yes.
Because it's a bold move. It's a bold move.
Thank you.
Thank you for doing it.
I'll be the light and create more love.
Yes. Yes. Take care. Happy weekend, everyone.
Thank you.
Much love.
Bye-bye.